online. If you guys want to download the notes, you can do that to follow along with us. Our opening verse for this morning comes from the book of Revelation, chapter 20, and verses 8 through 11. Really familiar verses. We've read through this. We've talked about this before. But here it is. And to the messenger of the assembly in Smyrna write, this says the first and the last, who became dead and came to life. I know your works and pressure and poverty, yet you are rich, and the blasphemy of those who say they are Yehudim and are not, but are of the congregation of Satan. Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. See, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison in order to try you, and you shall have pressure 10 days. Be trustworthy until death, and I shall give you the crown of life. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the assemblies. He who overcomes shall by no means be harmed by the second death. For a few moments this morning, the title and the topic for today is He Who Overcomes. He who overcomes. You guys know the prayer? Pray it with me. Father, give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and hearts that are willing to obey. In the Master's name, amen. All right, so familiar out of the book of Revelation. It's one of the seven letters to the seven churches, the seven congregations, and all of them sort of end the same way. All of them end with some sort of phraseology like he who overcomes, then something is going to be given to them. And of course, we've talked about this before. Each one of the seven letters, there's something they're doing. I think 5 of them are doing some things that maybe they shouldn't be doing, and they need to correct those things. And 2 of them aren't doing anything wrong, but he still tells them to overcome. And that concept, that idea of what it means to overcome is what I'd like to talk about for this morning. Karen sent me a meme, I don't know, a couple of months ago. It was kind of funny when she sent it. Now, this isn't the meme, but this is what the meme was about. Everybody knows what a meme is, right? Just, a funny way of making fun of something or really getting out a truth, but doing it through humor, through pictures. Well, a meme, and of course this isn't it, but this is what the meme showed. In the meme, it showed a congregation that had just a couple of people in it, just sparse couple of people. And then another congregation was just jam-packed. And on the meme, it said, the difference between telling people the truth and telling people what they want to hear. And I thought that was kind of cute because that certainly, at least in my experience, very, very often turns out to be true. Truth versus what people want to hear. We've all probably heard in our times past, wherever we've come from, whatever our journey was that got us to where we are now, to what we understand now. We've all been in different congregations. We've all seen churches on TV. We've all seen TV preachers. Some of the really, really big ones. Look at the size of that. I think that's Lakewood. Lakewood in, I don't even know where that is. Maybe California. I think it's California. But I mean, look at how huge that thing is. That's like, I don't know, that's probably the size. That's probably just about as big, if not bigger, than Madison Square Garden. It's big. Lots and lots and lots of people. And I'm sure that you guys remember, we've all sort of been there, you can take the same verses, the same words, the words that we're sharing today, to be an overcomer, and hear them in a way that makes you feel good or tells you what you want to hear, and then we can take those same words and teach them and show that, well, they mean something a whole lot different than just feeling good, than just prosperity. And of course, if you've ever watched that or seen that gentleman on TV. And not just him. It's a lot of it. We call it the prosperity gospel. It's very, very encouraging. It's always about, Father's going to do for you, and He's going to bless you, and life's going to be good, and you're going to get out of whatever it is that you're in. You're going to overcome. The concept of overcome that many of us have grown up with or have experienced before is that overcoming means I get out of my troubles and then I get into something good. There's a blessing at the end of it. There's some sort of an encouragement. He's gonna give me the job. He's gonna give me the spouse, the husband, the wife. He's gonna give me the house, the car, all of those sorts of things. And I don't doubt that Father wants good things for His children. I don't think it's bad to have good things, but that sort of becomes the thing that people cling on to, that in every circumstance, it's going to work out. Things are going to get better. That's how we overcome. And you'll hear, I think, one of the sayings that they say at this particular congregation is, your best day is yet to come, or something like that. Or your best day is ahead of you. And the concept is that no matter how bad it is today, tomorrow it's going to be better. And I do hope for all of us, if you're having a bad day, that tomorrow will be better for you. But it amazes me how you can take a scripture like this one. This is Philippians the one we're just reading about overcoming. But here's Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. Now, this is the Scriptures version. I'm going to say it in the Scriptures version, and then probably in a way most of us are most familiar. It says, I have strength to do all through Messiah who empowers me. We probably know this a little better as, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right? Familiar verse. We've all heard it. But if you hear it in a way that is normally sort of brought forward to us, the idea is, well, I can overcome anything. I can endure anything. It doesn't matter. In Messiah, there's going to be blessing at the end of it. I'm going to call blessing down. That's very often how it's presented. And so it's amazing how it depends on what side of the picture you're on as to how you actually hear that. Because if you hear that as sort of a Tony Robbins type message, that everything's going to be good, that you can do everything in Messiah, you can get that job, you can have success, you can, whatever the circumstance happens to be. For context, that verse and the verse that we read in Revelation about being an overcomer. Now, if you checked out Wednesday's study, I hope that you guys did. We've been talking about death for a while, just trying to get into all the different scriptures about death and what happens and what's after all of this. And I mentioned this on Wednesday, that the context of understanding the verse we just read, and even the first verse in Revelation, we need to understand it in the eyes or in the context or the parable of, or in a parabolic way, of a contest, of a race, of a battle. Now, I know we don't normally hear this type of stuff, but this is the context that Father has put everything that you and I live through today as a parable to us, a way of learning it, a way of understanding it. This life is a contest. It is a battle. It is a race. Now, if you've ever played sports as a teenager, if you're in high school or junior high, or even in college, if you ever played sports, and I played lots and lots of sports. I remember in sports when you got hurt, the coach would say, you got to play through the pain. You just got to play through the pain. Come on, suck it up, Saints. Get up. You're hurting, your stomach's hurting, you feel like you're going to throw up. Suck it up, get up. And you learn, and what's the old saying? No pain, no gain, right? That's what we hear. That's what we're told when it comes to sports, when it comes to contests, when it comes to races, when it comes to even battle. Now, just a couple of pictures up there. To endure in battle or in a contest or in a race hurts. There's lots and lots of times when it hurts. Of course, you can see the guy with the soccer. He's obviously in pain, don't know what happened, but he is in pain. You've got the football players there. Obviously, he's injured. And then the marathon. Have you ever seen marathons where people, barely make it across the finish line? They look like they're going to die, and somebody comes along and helps them and carries them through. There's pain. There's pain in the race. I think in the military, and of course those are Navy SEALs at Budge training, and you can see on their faces they are in pain. And what they're training for is war. They're training for battle. And sports or athletic contests are similar in that there's a lot of pain inside of it. I think the military term is embrace the suck. I know, terrible kind of way of saying it, but that's what it means, to embrace it. Don't hide from it. Go through it. That very context is given to us with regards to the two verses we just read. That is to be an overcomer, and that I can do all things through Messiah who strengthens me. It's not about just blessing. I know that Father wants blessing for all of us. But it's not about that. And even when it comes to a race or it comes to sports or even the military, not everyone can endure. To endure takes a lot of inner fortitude, determination to go through. Saul uses this very context. And we talked about it in the book of Esdras this Wednesday too. We're going to get back there in just a second. But this idea of using a race or a contest as an example of what we are going through here and now as human beings is used by the Apostle Saul. This is number 6 on your notes. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 24. And listen to the words of the apostle. Do you not know that those who run in a race indeed all run, but one receives the prize? I put the PDP there in yellow or in parentheses on your notes there. The prize is overcoming. So everybody has a chance to run. Anybody could be in the race, but not everybody what? Wins the race or makes it to the finish line. Saul says, run in such a way as to obtain it. To obtain what? The prize. First place, second place, third place, whatever it happens to be. He's telling us to run in such a way that we obtain the prize. Verse 25, and everyone who competes controls himself in every way. Now, sporting, you got to train, you got to do push-ups, you got to run, you got to exercise, you got to get your body in shape. Controls himself in every way. Now they do it to receive a corruptible crown, meaning a reward, a crown, a reward, but it's an earthly reward. It's a medal. It's a ribbon, a corruptible crown. But we, meaning all of us, are also running a race. But we do it for an incorruptible crown. Therefore, I run accordingly, not with uncertainty. Thus I fight. So he's talking about running, he's talking about sports, he's talking about fighting. Not as one who beats the air, but I treat my body severely and make it my slave, lest having proclaimed to others, I myself might be rejected. So what's the race and what's the crown? If this thing is being analogized to both a race and the obtaining of a crown. The reason for overcoming. The real reason for the verse that says, I can do all things through Messiah who strengthens me. I actually I spoke with a brother one time who doesn't believe in keeping the Torah, doesn't believe in trying to keep the commandments at all. And he said to me, how can you keep the commandments? You can't do it. They're a burden. They're too hard to do. And I just turned to him. I said, yeah, but I do. And he looked at me and says, no, that's impossible. You know what I said? I can do all things through Messiah who strengthens me. He didn't like that. But it was the truth. It was the truth. The picture up there on the side, that's a laurel wreath. That's the crown Saul's talking about. And in context, way back then, they had the Olympics. They had contests, they had wrestling matches, running matches, javelin, all the rest of that. Started way, way back in Greece, made it all the way through the Roman Empire. It's with us today. We still have an Olympics today. Except today, you don't just get a laurel leaf, you get a medal, gold medal, silver, bronze, whatever it is, if you make it to the race, if you make it to the Olympics. But back then, the reward would be a laurel leaf, this crown that you would wear that would signify that you didn't just run the race, you won the race. You placed in the race. You made it to the end, and you made it in such a way that you received a crown. That would be a corruptible crown. It really has I'm sure it means something when you get it. To get a gold medal, I'm sure is absolutely incredible. But ultimately, as life goes on, that gold medal is not going to do a whole lot for you, or a laurel leaf is going to do a whole lot for you when real trouble enters into our lives, because that's what the race is. In this life, there is trouble. In this life, we move from, and every one of us knows it, we move from hardship to hardship to hardship. Life is full of disappointments, things that go wrong, people that don't like you, circumstances that are bad, things that are terrible, diagnoses that scare you, wars and rumors of wars all around us. Things can get pretty bad. After a while, you know what? I used to watch the news all the time, but if you watch it too much, you do 2 weeks of just watching everything that's going on, you're going to go crazy. It's because so much is going on all around us in our international lives, in our national lives, and in our personal lives as well. That's the race. Every single one of us, meaning not only us of faith, everybody on this planet is running this race, whether they realize it or not. The difference should be, now that we realize we're in the race, or that's the analogy, what should be the goal? To win the prize. Now, the prize, or the crown, in this particular case, the laurel leaf, but the prize is much, much bigger than that. Number 7 on your notes, the race and the crown. Here is the book of Jacob, James, in most of our Bibles, chapter 1 and verse 2. And he says, "My brothers, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the proving of your faith works endurance." He's still talking in terms of a race. Endurance is what you build up after doing something over and over and over and over again. And he says, brothers, count it all joy when you fall into various trials. How many of us actually count it all joy when you wake up in the morning and you're late for work because the alarm or the phone didn't work or your iPad died? You get up and you're late for work and you go to take a shower. There's no hot water. It's all cold water. And finally, you get out of the cold shower. You go to make coffee. You realize you don't have any coffee. You get out of the house, go to get your car, go to get into the car, and you find out you got not one flat tire, but 2. How many would stop and say, "Oh, I thank you, Abba. I count it all joy. Thank you for that." I doubt any one of us would do that. And that's light stuff. That's light stuff. What about when it gets really bad? What about when you get the phone call? I don't know about you, but when my phone rings at 3 o'clock in the morning, you just know that's not good. But what about when you get that phone call at 3 in the morning? What about when marriage seems to be on the rocks? What about when children don't want to listen and want to go do their own thing, and you know that what they're doing is going to get them in terrible, terrible trouble? What about that? What about when you go to the doctor and he gives you a diagnosis that's bad? What about then? Because all of that is part of the race. And as we go through life, we will deal with circumstance after circumstance after I'm not saying everything's always bad. There are good times. Obviously, there are good times. But that's the race. That's the idea. That's the concept that every single person on this planet goes through. How many like going to the dentist? I don't like going to the dentist. Just the sound of the drill. It just, I don't know, it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. Ever hear that? I can't take that. And that first injection of Novocaine you get, the second or third one doesn't really matter because you feel like your face is this big anyway. But that first injection of Novocaine, your hands are like this on the chair and it's shaking and you're holding your breath and you're stiff as a board and they stick the thing in your mouth and you realize you have no choice because you've got a toothache or a cavity or you have a root canal, whatever it is, you know you have no choice but to what? Go through it. There's no way around it. You can call out anything you want in the universe and claim whatever you want. You have to go through it. For all of you ladies that have brought children into the world, I am sure that was not something you looked forward to when labor came. I remember with Karen, it was rough. It was really rough. Father allowed you guys to bring children into the world because if it was up to us men, we would all die. That's just the way it is. But once those labor pains started, you realized what? There is no way around this but through it. And you ran the race. And you learned something about it, and before you know it, that thing was over, and the baby is in your arms, and you know, life goes on. And then the next thing comes that you have to endure. Count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the proving of your faith works endurance. And let endurance have a perfect work, so that you be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. Saying, I can do all things through Messiah who strengthens me. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of Elohim, who gives to all generously and without reproach, and it shall be given to him. But he should ask in faith, not doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of the sea driven and tossed by the wind. For that man should not think that he shall receive whatever from the master. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. And let the lowly brother boast in his exaltation, but let the rich in his humiliation, because as a flower of the field he shall pass away. For the sun rose with burning heat and withered the grass, and the flower fell, and its pretty appearance perished. So also the rich man shall fade away in his ways. Blessed is the man who does endure the contest, the trial. For when he has been proved, when he overcomes, look at what you get. He shall receive the crown of life, which the master has promised to those who love him. That's the same terminology we just read in Revelation chapter 2 to the church of Smyrna. All the suffering they're going to go through. To he who overcomes, Father will give, or the Messiah will give the crown of life. So if the race is this life, and this life moves from sometimes, very often, tragedy to tragedy, or hardship to hardship, or trial to trial. That's the purpose. That's the race. And how you get through that is through Messiah, in whom I am able to do all things. Not that I'm looking for the blessing at the end of the rainbow, or the car, or the mansion, or the house. I'm getting through looking for what? A crown. A crown. The crown of life is the prize, is the laurel leaf you wear in your hair, is the very reason for all of this, everything we go through. And not just us, everybody, of every culture, on every continent, of every religion, all of us are running the race. And though all of us are running the race, we already read, not everyone finishes the race. Number 8, Philippians chapter 4. I know what it is to be humble. This is the Apostle Paul, same one who just told us life is a race. I know what it is to be humbled, and I know what it is to have in excess. In any and every situation, I have learned both to be filled and to be hungry, both to have in excess and to be in need. I have strength to do all through Messiah who empowers me. This verse isn't about, this is the verse we just talked about, we opened up with. This isn't the verse that says everything's going to work out fine. This is the verse that says no matter what the adversary, the adversity is, no matter what the circumstance is, I can endure it. I don't want to go to the dentist. I don't want to get the Novocaine, but I will go through it. I can endure it. This isn't a pie in the sky, rainbow at the end thing. This is a shot in the arm letting you know what's going on in your life is also going on in other people's lives. The difference is it's going on in us because we're pursuing a crown. There is something at the end of this thing. Our suffering is not in vain. And it doesn't matter what the suffering is. If you're walking in Messiah, whatever the circumstance is, whether it's financial, whether it's home, whether it's, well, like I said, marriage, whether it's kids, all of those trials will teach you something. You'll have to endure. You'll have to get through. You'll have to learn something about the Master. You'll grow. You'll be strengthened. You're going to work some spiritual muscles you haven't worked before, so that when the next thing comes, you're prepared for the next thing when it comes. And as life moves on and on and on and on, it's not that we get better at it, but as Paul says here, I'm able to deal with it. I know what it is to have a whole lot. I know what it is not to have anything. And just, look at the story of Saul. That is what he did. Had a whole lot, and then he lost it all. And he counted it all joy. That's the context for that verse. Philippians chapter 2, it's on that same thing. Verse 14. So that's Saul. Here's Saul again in chapter 2. He says, do all matters without grumbling and disputings. Oh boy, isn't that neat? Doesn't sound like us though, right? In order that you may be blameless and faultless, children of Elohim without blemish in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world. Hold on a second. If all of us are going through trial and tribulation and hardship, and we're all being pressed in on every side and circumstance, if everybody in the planet is going through this, what makes you different? Or maybe the question should be, are you different? And what is your difference? And what does that difference mean to everybody else around you? Well, he just told us. One more time. Do all matters without grumbling and disputings, in order that you be blameless and faultless, children of Elohim, without blemish in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world, holding on to the word of life for a boast to me in the day of Messiah. Now, on Wednesday, I talked about the book of Esdras. I know it's not a book that maybe a lot of us have read. We're going to take a look at a couple little pieces of it. But there's this really amazing conversation that the prophet has with Father. And he's asking him in like chapters 7, 8, 9, he's asking him about death. And not just about death. He's asking him about death. He's asking about the unrighteous. He's asking them about what happens after we die. What is there at the end of this? He's asking about the futility. He says, we've all gone astray. Everybody's doing their own thing. The whole world is like that. Trial and tribulation everywhere. What's the sense of that? So these are questions that he poses in this book. And what you realize is when you begin to understand Saul, at least the way I was reading it, you realize Saul is actually taking a lot of the conversation. I'm not saying he's quoting it, but he's saying the same things as was said to Esdras by father about these same circumstances. And one of the things that he asked is with all of the futility of everything that goes on, and you just go from tragedy to tragedy to tragedy in life, and it's everybody that goes through it. He's like, well, so what's the benefit of all that? And the master's answer to him it really is amazing. He says, is gold abundant in the world? And the answer to that is no. It's a precious metal, but there's only a limited supply of it. But how much lead is there in the world? How much iron is there in the world? How much copper? Lots and lots and lots of. That's why we don't build skyscrapers out of gold, right? Unless you're Trump, I guess. But you don't build skyscrapers out of gold. We build them out of iron. Why? Because it is a common material. There's nothing precious about it. But gold, on the other hand, we as human beings, we perceive that to be precious. So is that which is precious something that is just in abundance, or is it something that is scarce? Is it the many, or is it the few? Rubies, onyx, diamonds, are they abundant everywhere? Can you walk across the street, down the street, kick a rock, say, oh, good, it's a 3-carat diamond. If you did, boy, that would be cool. But you can't. Why? Because those things are precious, and they are few. Rocks are everywhere. All sorts of stones, of granite, and whatever other type of stuff. They're everywhere. It's everywhere. It's common. What has more value to us? A piece of granite or a diamond? A diamond does. The granite is common, just like everything else around. And he tells Esdras that that's the story. He's looking, since everybody's in the race, and suffering is common to everybody, Father is looking not for copper, he's looking for gold. He's not looking for a rock, he's looking for diamonds. He's looking for that which is precious and not like everything else. It's just common. He wants what is precious. I thought, man, what a tremendous answer. Just Father's way of helping us to understand this story. That's why everyone runs in the race, but not everybody finishes the race. And I'm not talking about just accepting or understanding who Messiah is. If you accept and you understand who Messiah is, if you really, you will do this. It's impossible not to. You will become precious in his sight. You will begin to learn that from tragedy to tragedy, and listen, I'm talking about the worst things that you can imagine that can happen to people have happened to people who are believers and unbelievers, obviously. Imagine the worst thing possible. You can still be precious in that worst thing. Whatever happened to you as a child, however you were treated or mistreated, I know it's horrible, I know it's terrible. You can still be precious in that, in the way you respond to it, because you can do all things through Messiah who strengthens you. I know it's hard when it's your spouse, when it's your mom or your dad, and they get that diagnosis, and it hurts. And you're thinking, my goodness, when they're gone, I'm all alone. You're not. I know it hurts. But that's a road everybody's going to travel at some point. There is no way around it except through it. But Father's looking for people that when we deal with that loss, when we deal with those circumstances, when we deal with our son, our daughter, our mom, our dad, our brother, our sister, our husband, our wife, in that sort of tragedy, you know, the one thing that in my mind I just never, ever, 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 ever want to happen is I do not want to bury my children. Let them bury me. But there are people that have to bury their children. It happens in this life. Tragedy to tragedy to tragedy to tragedy. There are people that have to bury their spouses young. Tragedy to tragedy. And even in the midst of it, you can either be common and let it tear you down and destroy you. And I'm not saying you're not going to be hurt. Of course you're going to be hurt. Beside yourself. But I can do all things through Messiah who strengthens me. Why? Because I know I'm in a race just like everybody else. And this is how Father set it up. And I want to make it to the prize. I'll endure, I'll learn, I'll be strengthened, and I'll go to the next thing and try to strengthen someone else. But I want to cross the finish line. Your position in Messiah and Father is given because he loves you. Nothing you have to do with it, for it or to gain it. But once you've got it, what are we supposed to do? Run the race for the prize. That's the lesson Saul is teaching us, and the lesson that is given to us in the book of Esdras. Here's Revelation. We're still in Philippians 2, verse 16. Holding on to the word of life for a boast to me in the day of Messiah. So he's saying, in all the stuff that I've gone through, all the mad, without grumbling, without finding fault, I shine, or you're supposed to shine, in a perverse generation that is common all around us. You're not supposed to be common. You're supposed to shine as lights in the world, holding on to the word of life for a boast to me, so that we can boast, not in a bad, arrogant, nasty way, but in the end, when you cross the finish line on that day, when you close your eyes in one world and open them up in another, guess what you're going to do? You're going to boast. You're going to say, I made it. I'm here. I overcame. You will receive the crown of life. We don't think about this a lot, but that's really the whole story of the gospel. This is not the only world that Father made. I pose it to you this way. This is not even the first world Father made. He made the place that we would call Sheol, heaven, whatever terminology you like to use, where the city is, where Father is, where angels are. Because when you read through books like Enoch or the book of Revelation, and we look at those things, it's got trees in it, mountains in it, rivers in it, it's got cities in it. It is an entire world, I believe, made first. And we are the shadow of it. With trees and birds and rivers and mountains and all the things that go on. And Father knew at some point we were going to rebel from him. He knew it. And the contest started. Sin came in. People became common. And Father's been looking ever since for people who are treasures, who would understand that this is not just it. There is another world that he wants us to enter into. And I think that's part of the reason why at the end of all of this, what is he going to do to this world? Make it new. Make it new. I think more like the one that he made before, or maybe even join them for all I know. This is not the only world. This is why when Moses sees Abba and he's told to make a tabernacle, he says, make it according to the pattern that you see. Well, what pattern was he looking at? Father's temple in that place. And so earth becomes a shadow of that. And everything we're doing here in the shadow as an example to learn, to go through, to move from thing to thing to thing, to suffer from thing to thing to thing because of our rebellion is to run the race at the end so that I can enter that world. Because that's what Father always wanted. See, in this world, in the shadow, we die. In that world, we don't. But like sitting in the dentist chair, you got to go through it. Revelation chapter 20, verse 8. And to the messenger, this is our opening verse. Now I'm going to read it with what we've now talked about and put the little PDP in there. And to the messenger of the assembly in Smyrna write, this says the first and the last, who already ran the race. Did Messiah run the race? Did he go from tragedy to tragedy and hardship to hardship and pain to pain all the way to the point of death? Of course he did. His father, earthly father, dies. His mother has to raise an entire group, a family, on her own. What do you think was his responsibility when he got of age to be able to work? Probably to work to support the family. All of his brothers and sisters that were under him. At birth, Herod wants to kill him. So they moved to Egypt. Circumstance after circumstance after circumstance. His cousin John is arrested, put in prison, and eventually beheaded. His father or his uncle Zechariah is killed as they're searching for John and his mother. Tragedy after tragedy after tragedy in Messiah's life. The group of men that he picks to be with him, that he gives all of this information to, as sharing all the mysteries of the kingdom, what do in the moment when it gets really bad? They forsake him. Peter curses him. You go from tragedy to tragedy to tragedy. Even the night as he's praying prior to the arrest in the garden, prays there and asks Abba what? Can we not do the dentist thing? I'm being analogous here. He says, can this cup pass from me? In the flesh, did he want to do it? He was asking for something else. There's no way to the end of it except through it. He knew exactly what was coming, and he endured it. All the way to death. There was no car at the end of it. There was no it's better at the end. There was no house at the end of it. There was no prosperity at the end of it. He was not living his quote unquote best day. He was running the race. And he didn't stop. And he pressed on to the prize. And what are we supposed to do? The same. The same. And if we do, you will be a treasure. Something not common. And to the messenger of the assembly in Smyrna, this is the first and last says, who ran the race, he became dead. And he overcame. He came to life. I know your works and your pressure and your poverty. Yet you are rich. This doesn't sound like name it and claim it stuff, does it? This sounds like real hardship. And the blasphemy of those who say they are Yehudim and are not. The blasphemy of those all around you who are common, who look at what you do and what you go through and say, man, you're just nothing but trouble. You got tragedy to tragedy. You know, what your faith thing, I don't want to hear about that. Family leave, friends leave, people leave, jobs leave. And what do? I can do all things through Messiah who strengthens me. And you go on. The blasphemy of those who say they are Yehudim and are not, but are of the congregation of Satan. They're common. Do not be afraid of what you are about to suffer. That's probably the key verse in all of this. Don't fear whatever it is that we're going to suffer. People have been suffering the entire creation. And so will we. But it's how we do it and how we get through it that's going to make us precious. See, the devil's about to throw some of you into prison, and of course he did in speaking to that particular congregation, in order to try you, and you shall have pressure 10 days. Be trustworthy. Run the race. Until what? until death. When is it over? When you die. That's it. That's it. We move from thing to thing to thing to, and I'm not saying there's not good times in between. There's lots of good times. But when do we stop running? At death. That's the race. Not everybody who runs the race gets the prize. Until death, and what happens? And I shall give you the crown of life, eternal life. Closing our eyes in one world and opening them up in another. And I think there's more to it than that. There's stuff that we can read, and we'll probably share it on Wednesday or something more of that. But I'm just making it as simple as I can. Close our eyes in one life and open them in another. Until the time that no death will affect us. In fact, that's exactly what the promise is here. Listen to what it says. Be trustworthy until death, and I shall give you the crown of life. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the assemblies. Listen to this. Internalize this. Understand that this applies to you. He who can do all things in him, the Messiah, he who overcomes shall by no means be harmed by the second death. If the first death is something none of us really want to think about, nobody really wants to, we don't really talk about that unless you have to. It's in a circumstance of a funeral. Then of course, it's the conversation. But even then, you don't want to talk about that. We don't want to think about our mortality. We don't want to think about the end. Nobody does. I get that. It's kind of a morbid thought to think about. But as the people who are precious, it's not our death we should be thinking about. It's what comes next. That's the prize. Now listen, do not be afraid of death. Do not be afraid. Be afraid of maybe how you die. I get that. Yeah, the process hopefully is, in your sleep of old age, but don't be afraid of death. That's the race. And nobody gets around it. We all go through it. Be trustworthy, run the race until death, and I shall give you the crown of life. He who has an ear to hear what the Spirit says to the assemblies, he who overcomes shall by no means be harmed by the second death. If we are this, what's the right word? I wouldn't say nervous. We don't like thinking about the first death. Can you imagine the second? I don't want to. Whatever that means, I don't want to. It's meant to be something that puts fear in us. But in Messiah now, death will lose its sting and its power because he has overcome it. Here's 2nd Esdras, some of the verses I shared with you before. I want to share them again, just a few of them. This is 2nd Esdras chapter 7, verse 15. You understand the conversation now that he's having. And listen to what he says to him. And I can hear Saul's words in this, or Saul's response to this. But now, why are you disturbed, afraid, nervous, seeing that you are to perish, meaning die? And why are you moved, seeing that you are mortal? And why have you not considered in your mind what is to come rather than what is now present? You know what that's about? Your best day now. It's about your blessing now. It's about having some good thing happen now. And yet, the instruction winds up becoming, at least here to Esdras, and certainly it comes out in the New Testament as well, he who loves his life will lose it. But he who loses his life for Messiah's sake will find it. Find it. Same thing he's telling him here. Same concept. It's not at all different. He says, why don't you consider in your mind what's to come rather than what is now present? And what does this entire world that's common all around us, what's the number one thing on people's mind? What's present? What's right here? What do I got to do? What do I got to pay? What do I got to work? And I get it. We need to be concerned with those things because they're life. But how many of us really think about what's to come? It's the whole reason that we're here, to be honest with you. He goes on to say, rather than what is present. Chapter 7, verse 127. He answered and said, this is Father answering to Esdras. This is the meaning of the contest. PDP version, the race. How does Father, way before Saul says it, how does Father explain this life? As a contest, as a race. Everybody's running it. Not everybody's going to win it. This is the meaning of the contest, which every man who is born on earth shall wage. That if he is defeated, he shall suffer what you have said. He's talking about the judgment. But if he is victorious, he shall receive what I have said, the crown of life. See, but say, now people would look and say, yeah, but aren't you just saved by grace? Doesn't really matter what you do. Your position in Father is given by grace. You are cleansed, you are washed, you are made clean. And if you have life the next day, what are you supposed to do? Run the race until the end. That's the way this goes. Running the race doesn't take away from the gift that Father's given to you. It is the acknowledgement that I've got the gift. Because that's the only way running the race means something. Because I know there's a prize at the end of it. So this is not you earning a gift. This is you who have already been given a gift, living it out until the prize comes. This is the meaning of the contest, the race, which every man who is born on the earth shall wage. That if he is defeated, he shall suffer what you have said. But if he is victorious, he shall receive what I said, the crown of life. For this is the way of which Moses, while he was alive, spoke to the people, saying, choose for yourself life that you may live. Wait a minute. He's telling Esdras way back in Deuteronomy, when Father spoke through Moses to the people and told them, choose life. Do this and live. Do this and die. He's telling us what he was actually telling him was endure the contest so that you may get the prize at the end of it. Choose now what you're going to do, how you're going to deal with this thing. Make your decision now. Am I going to be a treasure? Am I going to be a pearl of great price? Am I going to be gold? Am I going to be diamonds? Or am I going to be copper, lead, and iron? Choose now. While he was alive, he spoke to the people saying, choose for yourself life that you may live. But they did not believe him, or the prophets after him, or even myself who have spoken to them. And thus they became common. Chapter 8, verse 50. For many miseries will affect those who inhabit the world in the last times. And my goodness, if that's not today, I don't know. Because they have walked in great pride. Oh my goodness, if that's not today, I don't know. Our whole world is walking in misery right now. There's not a government that does not lie to their people anywhere. Hasn't been. Who owns this world? Who rules this world? Who empowers the nations, including the United States of America? The dragon. Not my words. Not my words. John's words, the Master's words. Ask the Messiah to bow down, worship me, and I'll give you all of these kingdoms. Why? Because they are his to give. In this life, because it is that way, we have tribulation and all the crazy stuff that's going on now all around us. He goes on to say, because they have walked in great pride. Verse 51, but think of your own case. He's speaking to Esdras, but I want you to think of your own case, you. But think of your own case and inquire concerning the glory of those who are like yourself. They're precious. They've endured. They've overcome. They've run the race. Verse 52, you do that. You show yourself not common. You understand who Messiah is. You receive that gift of being made right in his eyes. You begin to become obedient and you walk in the instruction, and the instruction teaches you how to get through all of these things, how to do things in Messiah and not be beaten down and end this thing, to go all the way to the point of death and then open your eyes somewhere else. Because it is for you that paradise is opened. The tree of life is planted. Where? In that world. It's not in this world. It's in that world. And the only way to get to that world is how? Death. Or for a very, very select few on the day as Mashiach is in the sky with the angels behind him, a very, very small group of people will see him with their own carnal eyes and be changed in the twinkling of an eye. You know what? This is just me. I'm spitballing here. But you know what I think happens to them? I think they die. I think their bodies fall dead on the ground. And the real them on the inside is what rises out of them. That's me. That's just me. Just saying. That's me. I said on Wednesday, you ever see paintings of like rapture, what everybody calls rapture or resurrection? I had a really neat painting in my office years and years ago of I guess it was like, I forgot what kind of church it was, some congregational church. Congregational church, not just them, but other churches. Ever see churches that have a cemetery right next to them? That would kind of freak me out a little bit. But anyway, there's a cemetery right next to the church. And it was, I suppose, it was a painting of the day of resurrection. And the graves are bursting open and people are shooting out of the graves. I thought about this just actually a couple of weeks. I think I said something to you a couple of weeks ago. But then I started thinking about that because it tells us, yes, those who are in the grave will rise up. But this body is corruptible. This body is in sin. It's been tainted already. It, like a shell of a wheat, a husk, is going to disintegrate and go back to the earth. You don't stay in that grave. Where do we go? All people, whether you are righteous or unrighteous, where do we go? Sheol, which is also called the grave. And there's a paradise part of Sheol. Today you will be with me in paradise. And there is the other part of Sheol where there is a schism or a chasm between, where there is torment. Everybody goes to the grave. I don't think it's the grave that they put you in with a little, piece of stone over your head and with a name and your birth date and death date. I don't think that's the grave we're going to pop out of. I think it's Sheol that we're going to pop up out of. All of us. I can't see Father recycling. I know we're supposed to recycle. Do your cans, do your plastics. But I can't see Father. So the question is, but what about Messiah's body? Why didn't he leave Messiah's body there? What would have happened if Father left Messiah's body there? Same thing that would have happened if he left Moses' body. We would have made an idol out of it. We would have worshiped it. We would have fought wars over it. Millions, if not billions and billions would have died because of it. You and I, we're not him. We're not Moses and we're not Messiah. But I still don't think Father's going to recycle us. But he is going to raise us. And ultimately to a new heaven and new earth. Why? Because this one's been corrupted. We did it. Our ancestors did it. It is corrupted. But in that place, there is the tree of life. And eventually, the tree of life is going to be where? Here, in the city that appears here. The tree of life is planted. The age to come is prepared. Plenty is provided. A city is built. Rest is appointed. Goodness is established, and wisdom perfected beforehand. The root of evil is sealed up from you. Illness is banished from you, and death is hidden from you. Hell has fled, and corruption has been forgotten. All the sorrows, the race, has passed away. And in the end, the treasure of immortality, the crown of life, is made manifest. See, you want to know what the prosperity gospel really is? Because there is prosperity in the message. There is great blessing in the message. But it's not a car. It's not a house. It's not a job. It's not a career. That's not the blessing. This is the blessing. And it's not just here, just so you see it. I know you probably know it already, but it's not just here. Our last verse for today, number 11 on your notes, Revelation chapter 21. This isn't an apocryphal book. This is Revelation we're talking about. And it appears in chapter 7 and here in chapter 21. It says, "And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, see, the tabernacle or the booth of Elohim is with men, and he shall dwell with them. And they shall be his people, and Elohim himself shall be with them and be their Elohim. And Elohim shall wipe away every tear from their eyes. And there shall be no more death, nor mourning, nor crying, and there shall be no more pain. For the former matters have passed away. And he who was sitting on the throne said, see, I make all matters new. And he said to me, write these words, for these words are true and trustworthy. You can take it to the bank. Same words that we just read in Esdras. That's the prosperity. That's the ultimate healing. That's when the race is done. Beloved, I know it's hard. We mourn, we cry, we can be sad, we can be disappointed, we can be hurt. We can have terrible things said about us, terrible things done to us. We can suffer all sorts of tragedies. Who knows what the next days have for us? The dragon runs the world. But you can do this. I'm telling you, you can do this. You are a treasure. You could do this. The master tells us that the kingdom is like a man who found a treasure. And what'd he do? Hid it away in the field, and he buys the whole field just to get the treasure. Where does he hide us away? He buries us in Sheol. And he bought the whole world. One day he's going to take us out of it. That's the kingdom. That's the story. You can do this. You can do all things through Messiah who strengthens you. That is Father's word for you for this morning. Yeah, you can give a hand clap. Man, if I was younger, I'd be jumping up and down the stage, running up and down, hooping and hollering. But I can't. My back hurts. I got 2 fake hips. I got multiple herniations. I got spasms going on. My feet are sore. But I can do all things through Messiah who strengthens me. You can get a little loud. You can get a little crazy. That's fine. That's good. You can say amen. Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen? Better be careful before I pull something. Abba's good. And all the time. So what's coming? Probably some tough times. Good times too. Enjoy the good ones while you have the opportunity. Enjoy every day. But endure and overcome everything else. And finish the race. That's it. As simply as you can get it. It's a race. It's a contest. And Father is looking for treasure. You are a treasure. Abba Yah, we love you. We thank you for your magnificent story. And I pray, Abba, for all that hear my voice this morning, that this would be a word of encouragement to them. Father, a word to strengthen them. Father, a word to remind them of what we should be thinking about. Yes, enough is the day and the evil that's in it. But Father, we seek your kingdom and your righteousness. We seek the prize, the crown of life. We thank you that this was always your plan. It's just we're starting to figure it out now. We thank you for Messiah, the one who ran the race before us and showed us what could be done. To you be the glory, the honor, the praise, and power, and to your Son, both now and forevermore. In the Master's name, amen and amen. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us this morning. I hope that you were encouraged by that word. Don't forget to join us on Monday, regular week for us, Monday, morning manners, Wednesday, Bible study, Friday night, Brother Max and I. Have an awesome, awesome time this week. Listen, don't be down. Don't let things get you down. You can do all things through Messiah who strengthens you. Guys, Shabbat Shalom.